He left $1 million sitting in an open safe bait for a trap he thought no one could resist. But the young waitress who stepped into that room didn't just refuse. She unleashed a chain of events that shattered his entire world. Would you have walked away from that kind of money? Walter Grayson, a once powerful millionaire in Portland, Oregon, had been living like a shadow of himself since losing his beloved wife, Clara, and suffering the ultimate betrayal by his own family. Nora Bennett, 25, was drowning in double shifts and sleepless nights, desperate to save her father from crushing medical debt. And when she found herself staring at that open safe, a buried secret roared back to life, threatening to destroy everything. Turn away now, and you'll never know the choice that could change everything. Walter Grayson, 76, had once been the driving wind that shaped Portland, Oregon's real estate skyline, where towering buildings bearing his name rose proudly like the city's lush green hills. But now, the man who once stood at the height of power had retreated behind the thick walls of his Oakwood mansion in the West Hills, a cold fortress guarded by 12 security cameras and unyielding stainless steel doors. Inside, every corner echoed with a heavy silence. Clara, his beloved wife of 40 years, had passed away from heart disease, leaving behind a wound that would never close. The pain deepened when his own son, with eyes as cold as winter glass, took him to court to seize the family trust. And as the final blow, his granddaughter, once the little girl who called him "my dear grandpa," vanished after borrowing $50,000, never to return. These betrayals carved themselves deep into Walter's heart, turning him into a shadow of himself, convinced that only silence was safe, for it kept the lies out. Each morning, Walter walked slowly down the hallway, his gaze lingering on Clara's portrait. Her smile still shone like sunlight over the Willamette River, but that light could no longer warm him. Age had made even the smallest tasks, dusting shelves, checking the locks, feel burdensome, forcing him to seek another pair of hands. Through a discreet agency, he chose Nora Bennett, a 25-year-old waitress at a riverside diner along the Willamette. Nora lived in a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, her back bent under the weight of unpaid college tuition and her father's mounting medical bills, her father being a mechanic drowning in debt. Her file was short. Hardworking, not fond of talking. For Walter, who trusted nothing and no one, that was enough to test her. The interview took place in the mansion's living room, where sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting warm gold across the oakwood floor. Nora walked in wearing worn flats, her curly hair tied back, no makeup, no jewelry. She sat upright, arms loosely folded, her gaze calm yet sharp. Walter, his eyes as probing as ever, waited for the usual question about pay or hours. Instead, Nora's attention drifted to Clara's portrait on the wall, where the woman's eyes glowed with timeless gentleness. "What was her favorite flower?" she asked, her voice soft as a passing breeze. Walter froze, as though someone had just touched a door in his memory he'd kept locked for decades. No one had asked about Clara in all these years. That question, so simple yet so unshakably sincere, cracked through his walls of suspicion. Was she truly genuine, or simply weaving a more intricate trap than those before her? Her question lingered in the air, like a small beam of light cutting into the shadows of his doubt. Did she realize she had just unlocked a place he had vowed never to return to? Okay, dear viewers, don't take your eyes off the screen. Take 1 second to click subscribe, comment number 1 if you are still here and find this story interesting and want to continue listening.
Welcome to 30 Millionaire Stories, where success meets solitude, and every story heals a hidden wound. Subscribe and discover the heart behind the fortune.
The suspicion from Nora's unexpected question lingered in Walter's mind, like a faint scratch on the safety glass he had built around himself. Haunted by past betrayals, from his son suing to seize the family trust, To his granddaughter vanishing with a loan of $50,000, Walter decided to act. He could not allow a young woman, no matter how sincere she might seem, to slip past his defenses without being tested. In the late hours of the night, as the West Hills mansion lay cloaked in darkness, he drafted a plan, a calculated test in which honesty would be laid bare under the cold, unblinking gaze of the cameras. The next morning, before Nora arrived, Walter stepped into the study, Clara's favorite room, where she once sat reading poetry under a warm lamp, the turning pages soft as a whisper. The heavy safe, hidden behind a walnut bookcase, he left deliberately wide open. Inside, he arranged carefully, stacks of cash totaling $1 million, shimmering in the dim light, Clara's diamond wedding ring, the final keepsake from their wedding day, glistening like a tear, and the deeds to multiple Portland properties, the assets he had built from nothing. Everything was placed as though he had carelessly forgotten to lock it, a temptation impossible to ignore, enough to test anyone struggling through the harsh realities of America, where medical bills and debt could crush even the strongest dreams. Walter closed the study door with feigned indifference, but in his heart, the plan was ticking like a time bomb. From his upstairs office, Walter sank into the worn leather chair and switched on the camera system, the soulless eyes sweeping over every corner of the mansion. His gaze sharpened, that of an aging detective, watching every movement on the monitors. Nora arrived on time, her footsteps light across the wooden floor, carrying a simple canvas bag. She began her work without a single unnecessary word, wiping down the dining table with a soft cloth, folding napkins into the shape of roses, a small, meticulous detail that made Walter narrow his eyes, wondering if it was a sign of calculation. She moved down the hallway, the distant light from the Willamette River spilling through the windows onto her face, serene, focused. But when she stepped into the study, where the air still carried the faint scent of Clara's old books, Nora paused. Her gaze wavered for an instant, brushing over the wide-open safe, where the piles of cash and the gleaming ring shimmered like an alluring invitation. Walter gripped the armrests, his breath quickening. Would she touch it or turn away? The question hung there, beating in time with his racing heart. Comment below, what is the greatest temptation you've ever faced? Don't leave, because Nora's next move might make you rethink everything you believe about trust. Nora stood there, the seconds stretching into what felt like a century in Walter's eyes. She did not rush, nor glance nervously around like those before her people who had furtively, tremblingly reached for the money. Instead, she took a deep breath, as though weighing not personal gain but some deeper principle. From the screen, Walter could feel the tension spreading, the realization that his obsession now was not merely about guarding his wealth, but about testing his own soul. This plan, he thought, might either salvage or destroy the last fragments of hope within him. But if Nora fell, would he ever be able to trust anyone again? Could she be the exception? Ask yourself, if you were in her place, what would you choose? Stay tuned, because Nora's answer might just change the way you see the world. The moment Nora stopped in front of the wide-open safe stretched out like a held breath, where the flicker in her eyes seemed to mirror the rising tide of doubt in Walter's heart. From the camera feed, he watched, his hands gripping the leather chair, his breath rushing like the wind over the Willamette River. Light from the high-hung chandelier poured down onto the stacks of cash, $1 million glittering like a promise of a life free from debt, and onto Clara's diamond ring, the emblem of a love long lost lying silent, a reminder of how fragile trust could be. Nora, her face calm, but her hands faintly trembling, drew a deep breath, as though summoning strength from the invisible principles that had shaped her life through endless shifts at the Riverside Diner. Instead of touching anything, Nora stepped back, pulled her phone from the simple canvas bag, and called Walter's secretary. Her voice was steady, not a trace of panic, reporting the safe left open with money and jewelry inside, asking how she should proceed. Without clear instructions, only the advice to wait for Walter's return, Nora didn't hesitate. She dragged the old armchair from the corner of the room, set it directly in front of the safe, and sat down like a loyal sentry. The Portland mansion, with its silent oak-paneled walls, now bore witness to an unusual scene. A young woman, well acquainted with crushing medical bills and the collapse of her college dreams, choosing to guard a stranger's fortune rather than seize a chance to change her own life. From his upstairs office, Walter felt an unfamiliar wave rise within him. Not the bitter disappointment he knew so well, but a curiosity laced with unease. Was she acting? Or was this a sign of something worth more than money? Comment below. Have you ever chosen principle over personal gain? Don't leave, because Nora's next move will make you question your own heart. Nora sat there, pulling a small notebook from her bag, writing down her tasks with meticulous care notes about cleaning schedules and shopping lists, as if asserting her place in this unfamiliar home. Then she reached for a volume of poetry from the nearby shelf, the kind Clara had loved its worn pages carrying the scent of time. The minutes trickled by slowly, but Nora never took her eyes off the safe, her body as still as a statue in the quiet of the study. In that stillness, her phone buzzed. It was a call from her mother, her voice choked with tears, speaking of her father's $45,000 debt, the looming loss of his repair shop, and her fears for Nora's younger brother, Liam's health. Nora listened, her eyes clouding with restrained tears, whispering reassurances that she would find a way. But even in that moment of despair, with the fortune before her that could solve everything, she didn't move. She remained at her post, guarding the safe for 5 long hours, as if honesty was the single thread keeping her life from unraveling. From the monitor, Walter felt his heartbeat pound, not for the first time in years from fear, but from a faint spark of hope. How could a poor waitress make such a choice? Ask yourself. In a moment of weakness, what would you choose? Keep watching, because Nora's answer might change not only Walter but you as well. Those 5 hours stretched like an inner journey for them both. Nora, with the poetry book in her hands, turned the pages slowly, yet her mind seemed to wrestle with the ghosts of her life. Crushing medical debt, the dream of an unfinished education, the weight of her family's struggles, burdens all too familiar to millions of Americans. Walter, from his post of observation, felt the tension mounting, each passing minute a challenge to his fractured trust. He had seen so many fall to far smaller temptations, yet Nora remained steadfast, like a lighthouse in a storm. Could this be the miracle he'd been waiting for? Comment 1 if you think this story is worth telling, so we know you're still with us. Walter's heart was still pounding from the moment Nora sat guarding the safe for 5 straight hours, an act that, for the first time in years, let a sliver of hope slip through the thick shell of suspicion surrounding him. He rose from the leather chair, descended the mansion's staircase with heavy steps, pretending he had just returned from an imagined appointment. The study still carried the faint scent of Clara's old books, where Nora now stood, her face calm, but her eyes shadowed with the exhaustion from that tearful call with her mother. Walter faced her, his gaze no longer cold but tinged with uncertainty, as though the wall he had built was beginning to crack. He laid it all out, the hidden cameras throughout the house, the deliberate plan to leave the safe open as a test of honesty, and his watchful surveillance of her every move from the screen upstairs. The confession hung in the air, gentle yet weighty, like a belated admission from a man long accustomed to isolation. To express his surprise and quiet gratitude, Walter pulled from his jacket pocket a thick envelope containing $60,000, a sum that could erase her father's debt and open the door to a brighter future. He offered it to her, his voice hoarse, with the original intent of rewarding such rare honesty. But Nora, her eyes red from the tears she'd held back during the earlier call, shook her head in refusal. She pushed the envelope back toward him, not in arrogance, but in deep sincerity, as though money was only the outer shell of a far greater value. Walter frowned. Her refusal caught him off guard, like a cool breeze sweeping through the cold mansion on the West Hills. Why would she turn it down? Comment below. Have you ever refused a reward to keep your principles? Don't leave because the secret Nora is about to reveal will make you stop and think. Nora stood there, took a deep breath, and began to speak not with long-winded explanations, but with simple details that struck the heart. 4 years earlier, when her younger brother Liam was just 10, he faced an emergency heart surgery at a Portland hospital. Her family was drowning in despair. The cost was far beyond their reach. An anonymous donor paid the entire bill, saving the boy's life without asking for anything in return. Nora's family never knew who their benefactor was, only that they carried their gratitude silently, like millions of other American families who had struggled under crushing medical bills. But one day, while volunteering at the hospital, Nora happened to see Walter's name on the donor list, a quiet, unpublicized gesture from the solitary old man who had built a real estate empire from nothing. She had sought this job not only to earn money for her tuition and help her father, but to meet him, the man who had given her family hope in its darkest hour. Her revelation, soft yet powerful, left Walter stunned, as though a hidden river had suddenly surged to the surface, sweeping away the wall of doubt he had built over decades. The feeling, warm and painful, spread through him, reminding him of Clara and the quiet acts of love she used to offer. How could an old act of charity return to him in such a way? Ask yourself, how has an anonymous good deed ever changed your life? Keep watching, because this moment is only the beginning of a greater transformation. Walter stood still, the envelope of money still in his hand, but now it felt heavier than ever. Nora's refusal was not defiance. It was a statement of genuine gratitude, the kind that could not be bought or traded, that only exists in the true life stories of America, where kindness sometimes comes full circle in a perfect loop. He felt the wall of suspicion within him crumble, its fragments falling like autumn leaves on the West Hills, revealing a space he had thought frozen forever. Nora, with eyes still red but unwavering, stood there as a symbol of the hope he thought he'd lost. Could this secret be the key to unlocking his heart? How has a secret from the past ever taken you by surprise? Don't miss what comes next, because Walter's breaking point will lead to an unexpected legacy. Walter's stunned silence at Nora's secret from the past lingered like the stillness after a storm, where the fragments of doubt fell away, revealing an emptiness he had thought filled by solitude. Moved by her steadfast honesty and sincere gratitude, rare qualities in the world of betrayal he had long known, Walter chose to act, not with his usual guardedness, but with a gesture of openness. He led Nora into his private office, where old files lay quietly on the oak desk, and revealed his plan: to entrust her with managing the Clara Grayson Charitable Foundation, a multi-million-dollar legacy he had quietly built after his wife's death, dedicated to supporting children with heart disease and struggling families, drowning in massive medical bills, problems all too familiar in America, where a single illness can push a household to the brink of ruin. The foundation, once a way for Walter to bury his grief through anonymous giving, was now becoming a bridge for change. Nora, her eyes flickering with uncertainty at the responsibility, having never managed anything on this scale, still nodded her acceptance. Not out of ambition, but out of a mission to help children like her brother Liam, children whose lives could be transformed by a single act of charity. Walter gave a faint smile, feeling for the first time a warmth spreading through the cold mansion on the West Hills. Could this decision be a turning point for them both? Comment below. How has a charitable act ever changed your life? Don't leave because their journey is only beginning. Together, they built the network of kindness, an initiative that expanded the foundation into a comprehensive support system. From funding local hospitals in Portland to providing scholarships for underprivileged students and small loans for family-owned businesses struggling under inflation and the high cost of living challenges faced daily by millions of Americans. Walter, with his experience of building a real estate empire from nothing, guided Nora step by step, analyzing case files, assessing needs, and ensuring every dollar reached the right hands. He disclosed how he had investigated her before hiring, discovering small but meaningful acts. Nora, sharing her modest wages with an unemployed roommate, buying medicine for an elderly neighbor who couldn't afford it, and tutoring children from low-income families along the Willamette River for free. These details, once a source of suspicion, had now become proof that he had chosen well. Though initially daunted by the magnitude of her new role, Nora gradually found strength in the mission, as though she were continuing Clara's legacy, the woman who had once taught Walter that kindness is the only asset that never loses value. Their bond grew unexpectedly, Walter becoming the father figure she had never known, offering wise counsel shaped by a lifetime of lessons, and Nora becoming the daughter he had dreamed of, bringing vitality into his long empty days. How has an unexpected relationship ever brought you hope? Keep watching, because a small gesture from Nora is about to melt Walter's heart. One late autumn afternoon, as golden sunlight streamed through the mansion windows, Nora quietly placed a bouquet of carnations, Clara's favorite flower, their gentle pink symbolizing enduring love, on Walter's desk. The gesture, simple yet profound, made him pause, his gaze softening as memories rushed back. The afternoons when Clara used to arrange flowers in the house, their sweet scent dissolving the weariness of the day. Walter smiled for the first time in years, a smile genuine and unforced, as if Nora had stirred awake the part of him long buried beneath suspicion. The network of kindness began to spread, from Portland to nearby cities, supporting hundreds of families through scholarships and small businesses, proving that one honest act can ignite a chain reaction of good. Walter, once isolated in his fortress, now found a new purpose through Nora, who was turning his legacy into a flame of hope. Could that smile be the first sign of healing? Walter's first smile at the bouquet of carnations, Clara's symbol of enduring love, was like a small flame igniting in a mansion once cold, signaling a profound change already reaching the outside world. 6 months later, the network of kindness had stretched from Portland to 12 cities, from Seattle's mist-covered streets to Denver's snow-capped mountains, touching hundreds of families struggling under the weight of medical and financial burdens. True American stories, where a single heart condition can trap generations in a cycle of poverty. The Clara Grayson Charitable Foundation, once a place where Walter hid his grief through anonymous giving, had become a beacon of hope, funding surgeries for children like Liam, providing scholarships to underprivileged students, and offering small loans to family businesses battered by inflation. Under Nora's new leadership, the foundation's early ideas had turned into concrete action: virtual volunteer conferences, counseling programs for patients' families, and partnerships with local hospitals to reduce treatment costs, all bearing the unmistakable mark of the honesty she had proven the day she guarded the safe. From his study, Walter watched this impact spread with quiet pride, feeling that his life finally carried meaning beyond isolation. Could this network keep growing? Comment below. How has a support network helped you through hardship? Don't leave, because Nora and Walter's transformation will make you believe in the power of kindness. The Riverside Diner, where Nora once worked long, weary shifts, now displayed a thank you sign to the foundation for saving her father's repair shop, a small yet powerful reminder that one honest act can trigger a domino effect. Walter's mansion was no longer a fortress of cameras and steel locks. It bloomed with carnations in the garden, echoed with the voices of young volunteers, and hosted warm meetings where Nora shared her vision. She still lived modestly in the cramped apartment with her roommates, refusing Walter's offer to move into the mansion, choosing to keep her feet on the ground and remain close to the struggles of those they served. Nora became a sought-after motivational speaker at universities in Oregon and Washington, sharing the story of the open safe not to boast, but to inspire integrity in a generation facing the economic and social pressures of modern America. Her voice, calm yet persuasive, told of a journey from poor waitress to foundation leader, touching hearts and prompting reflection on the value of principle in a world full of temptation. Walter, meanwhile, stayed behind his office door with a stack of letters, writing personal notes of encouragement to grant recipients, letters carrying Clara's warmth, filled with hope and compassion. For the first time since she passed, he felt peace, as if Nora had filled the void with her sincerity. Would that peace last? Ask yourself, how has a stranger ever brought you peace? Keep watching, because this ending will leave a lasting echo. Those 6 months unfolded like a shared healing journey where Walter and Nora became an unlikely pair, he, the wise father figure, sharing lessons from his failures in real estate, she, the daughter-like presence, bringing renewal, reminding him that kindness is not weakness. The network of kindness not only saved hundreds of families but also sparked community spirit, with young volunteers joining from across the country, transforming personal stories into collective strength, a testament to the American tradition of neighbors lifting each other through hardship. Though busy with speeches and leadership duties, Nora always made time to visit her now healthy brother Liam, who dreamed of becoming a cardiologist, a living thank you for Walter's act of generosity. He left $1 million inside his safe door wide open, the stacks of cash glowing under the soft light like a silent dare. It wasn't carelessness, it was bait, a trap set to expose the truth about human nature. Most people would have stepped closer, felt the weight of temptation pressing down, and given in. But what the young waitress did next didn't just defy expectation, it tore the fabric of his world apart. Walter Grayson, once the kind of man whose name alone could move markets, now lived in quiet isolation in his Portland, Oregon mansion. The years had hollowed him out, first the loss of his beloved wife, Clara, then the shattering betrayal of his own blood. He had built walls higher than any gate around his estate, shutting out the world entirely until the day Nora Bennett walked in. Nora, just 25, had never had the luxury of dreams. Every sunrise found her behind the counter of a diner, her hands raw from endless shifts, her mind consumed by one goal, saving her father from medical debt so deep it could crush their family forever. And then, one ordinary afternoon, she found herself standing in front of Walter's open safe. The air felt heavier, every second stretched longer. She could take it all, walk away, and no one would know. But one choice, one heartbeat, would drag a buried secret from the past into the light, and neither of their lives would ever be the same. If you think you know what you do in that moment, keep watching. You might not be so sure after you hear the truth.